is truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative is the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan, live Friday, TGIF. Forgot to take my bill off the set here. Live TGIF. I am a little bit late, but I have legitimate reasons to be late. I've been burning burning the daylight oil here, trying to get as much reporting done as possible. I've done some great interviews yesterday and today that we're going to air on Sunday. And speaking of Sunday, I'll tell you about that in a little bit. I hope everyone's having a lovely, lovely Friday. I am going to be live on Sunday, and today, I'm in a very energetic mood, and I am going to take on the Yang Gang. Who, by the way, for members of the Yang Gang, does your mother know you're in a gang? You're not supposed to be out in the street in a gang. Just keeping it real. Just keeping it real. But Jesus Christ, you do a video on Andrew Yang and the vitriol you get. I mean, I don't dislike Yang. I don't dislike the Yang Gang, but I think he's kind of offering a bunch of hot air balloons. And I'm going to tell you why in more detail today. Also, not that we don't already know how rigged things are. I mean, the establishment has been, hold on. Woo! Don't want to fall over. Okay. Trying to move some of the wiring. The establishment has been basically rigging the primary right through CNN and MSNBC. But the New York establishment is also trying to rig the primary. I have an update on that for you. But YouTube is doing everything humanly possible to make sure nobody knows status quo exists, to make sure nobody knows status quo has uploaded a video, to make sure nobody knows status quo is live. So what I need every single one of you watching domestically or around the world to do is I need you, if I had it, hold on. I need you all to smash the like button. Every single person, press that thumbs up button right under the video. It's right under the video. We got 140 of you watching. Only 64 have pressed that like button. The more people that press like, the more people that will see the live stream. So do me a favor, press the like button. Hold on. Okay. The wires are making me crazy. So, I also want you, as you go into the weekend, to consider signing up, becoming a member. That's statusquo.com/join. Our end of the year goal is 1,000 members. So we got some work to do here, folks. We're north of 700, but we have a lot more to do. And if you want us to be able to fund in-the-field journalism, real in-the-field journalism, statusquo.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. We also have plans as low as $10 a month. It makes a huge difference. I'd love to see some more member signups before Sunday. We have a huge show for you Sunday, including what's going on. Is there news about Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Does Status Quo know something you don't know about Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Tune in, noon Sunday. Find out. Noon Eastern time, that is. I'll be promoting that a little bit later, too. Also, follow us at Status Quo on the Twitter. I'm at Jordan Sheridan. Subscribe to our podcast and go to statusquo.com. Enter your email. We got to grow that email list as fast as possible. So, unsurprisingly, the primaries, they're really now scared beepless about Joe Biden. So the national establishment and the state parties are worried because, like, if you're paying attention to Joe Biden speaking, if you're paying attention to Joe Biden, you know, at the climate town hall, if you're paying attention to Joe Biden just when he opens his mouth, there's something wrong. There's something not clicking, folks. Which made sense to why last night I saw a report. Michael Williams, are you going to have a members call in September? You bet your bottom dollar we're going to have a members call in September. I wanted to do a members video today because we have some news on the documentary. So I might, after my live stream, do a video just for members to give you an update on our documentary. Good news on the documentary that members will get first. Flushing Flint, that is. So I'm going to do a video. Jen, remind me to do a video after the live stream just for the members and patrons. So if you want to know some news on our documentary Flushing Flint, good news, become a member, statusquo.com/join. Now, I saw this article last night and I was like absolutely flabbergasted because this is not subtle. This from New York One, which is the local news outlet here in New York. Andrew Cuomo, the governor, pushes to move the New York presidential primary to February. Governor Cuomo is pushing to upend the presidential primary calendar, making New York jump close to the head of the line by having voters head to the polls in February instead of late April, sources tell NY1. Cuomo is considering vetoing a bill that would set the presidential primary on April 28th, putting it just weeks after the pivotal Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primary instead. As a sweetener from Cuomo, sources say New York would also move its legislative primaries for state, Senate, and Assembly, currently scheduled for June 23rd, 2020, to coincide with a February presidential primary, potentially helping incumbents surviving challenges. Sources told New York One Governor Cuomo and top legislative leaders have recently held discussions about a potential move, but a lot would have to happen to make this a reality. To begin with, a special legislative session would have to be called, bringing lawmakers back to Albany this month. So, let me get this straight. Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has endorsed Joe Biden, who has openly opened his fundraising network for Joe Biden to loot, and that would be a fundraising network with Wall Street, financial types, healthcare, oil companies, real estate developers, just the usual suspects, destroying the United States of America and turning it into the United Corporations of America. And remember, we got 200 people watching on a Friday. We need every single one of you. Press the thumbs up button. The thumbs up button is right under the video. Even if you're watching on your phone, what I need you to do, cancel the live stream. Cancel out of the live chat for 1 second. You'll see the thumbs up button. Press that thumbs up button, and then you can go back into the live chat. YouTube does everything humanly possible to screw this channel and other progressive channels. One thing they can't do, apparently their algorithm works so that the more people that press the like button, the more people that will then see the live stream. I don't know why, but that's how it works. Please press that thumbs up button. Please press that thumbs up button. Even if you don't like me, just fake it. Just fake it. I'm fine with that. So, David, F in hell, I don't want to pay for a super chat? Then go away, David. What can I tell you? This is a super chat, by the way, so keep it coming if you're kind enough. So, why would the New York governor, who is basically BFF with Joe Biden, want to move the New York primary, which, as of now, on paper, is the third largest delegate count of any state. You got California that has 400 something pledged delegates up for grabs, a huge state as far as winning the primary. You have Texas second, which is 200 something, and then you have New York third. Why would Governor Cuomo want to move it up to February, right around the same time as the Iowa caucus, the New Hampshire primary, and the California primary? Well, if you move it up to February, you're giving people way less time to register. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. The deadline for non-Democrats in New York to switch from whether they're Republican now or they're the Green Party or whatever. For non-Democrats, the deadline to register as a Democrat is currently October 11th, which is the most suppressive in the country. New York ranks 50 out of 50 as far as how early you have to change your party affiliation and register as a Democrat. Even though a bill was passed in June that passed the New York State Senate and the Assembly to push that back to February. More on that in a little bit. Why would he want to move it up to February? Maybe because he's seeing what anyone with eyes is seeing, and time is of the essence. Joe Biden's not looking so hot. Joe Biden is looking like every public appearance, every speech, every debate, every town hall, he is one or two monumental missteps as far as, frankly, cognitive decline from people looking and being like, wow, we got to jump ship here. I mean, if you watched him at the CNN climate town hall, it was a rambling, stumbling, nonsensical bowl of blah, frankly. So I would think in Cuomo's eye, well, if we could move it up, you give less time for independents to change to Democrat. You give less time for first-time voters that might want to get into voting and maybe vote for a Bernie. Less time for more people to register, aka more of the same type of voters, the Democratic establishment type voters. Less time for independents to register, less time for people from the Green Party to maybe register as a Democrat, less time for first-time voters, and less time for independents to become Democrats. Well, if you happen to think that, there's the other part. Reports said he wanted to move it up to February, but as I said, there is a bill that is already passed, is just sitting there, that would move New York's deadline to switch parties and register as a Democrat. So if you're not a Democrat now, the deadline to register as a Democrat is October 11th. It was a bill in June that passed to move it back to February 14 for all people currently, if you register as a Green Party, a Republican, any working families party, you have to October 11th currently to switch to the Democratic Party. If you, under this bill that Cuomo has not signed, it would move to February 14th, which is still too early, but it's a lot better than October. Why is it that Governor Cuomo won't sign it? Why is it that Governor Cuomo won't sign it? And after this report came out yesterday, saying that Cuomo was eyeing moving the primary up to February, which, make no mistake about it, if the New York primary was in February, look at it. If Biden were to win, let's say, Iowa, then if he won New York, if New York was right after Iowa and New Hampshire, that's a lot of delegates he already has. And then he's headed to South Carolina where he'll do good. It's called trying to stack the deck for the preferred anointed candidate, Joseph Biden. That's why Cuomo wants to do this. Luckily, the majority, the Senate leaders in New York and the Assembly leaders said, we're not interested. But make no mistake about it, that doesn't mean he's going to stop trying. You know, later, Cuomo went on a radio station this morning and basically doubled down on the fact that this was being under consideration. But the pushback was so thick that finally he came out with a statement saying he's not going to do that. He wants to consolidate all primaries. So he wants the presidential, the state, and the local primaries to be on April 28th. But this was only after basically all sides in the state assembly, the state senate. Progressive activists said, no, we're not bringing a new session to move up the primary to February, essentially, frankly, to help Joe Biden. Because that's what it is. That's why he wants to do it. So part of why I was late to go live was I interviewed the guy who broke that story earlier today. He's one of these, straight-laced reporters. He works at New York One, so he can't give his opinion. You know how I am with that stuff. I don't believe you have to be a straitjacket, neutral robot reporter. But whatever, he was nice enough to take some time, so I just interviewed him a couple minutes ago. I'm going to air that interview to give you a little bit more information on, frankly, I'm trying not to get demonetized, this effery, fudgery, shall I say, that Andrew Cuomo is trying to implement in New York to help Joe Biden. Here's Zachary Fink with New York One News. Hey, it's Jordan. I am joined by Zachary Fink. You're a reporter with New York One, who broke a story last night. It's kind of all over the place now, but last night, I guess, you reported that Governor Cuomo was considering or wanted to moving up the New York primary to February. It's now supposed to be April 28th. He has kind of made conflicting statements since then. There's also the issue that I've been reporting on as far as the October 11th deadline for those who aren't Democrats now to switch and register as a Democrat, which he also hasn't signed. Let's start with fact or fiction as far as him wanting to move up the New York primary to February, which basically would be like around the same time as Iowa, New Hampshire, and all those.
Absolutely. Look, my understanding is that the law that's on his, or the bill rather, that's on his desk right now, sent to him just this week, something the legislature passed in the spring, will set New York's presidential primary for April 28th. If he vetoes that bill, it defaults to February 4th for New York's presidential primary.
Hey, I don't want to cut you off. Look to the left a little bit. Other way. Other way. And look down. Okay. If you just your eyes straight ahead.
Okay, look at you straight
ahead. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you want me to start again? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. So my understanding is the bill that is on his desk right now, which was passed earlier this year, would set New York's presidential primary on April 28th. If he vetoes that bill, it defaults to February 4th. That's a law that goes back to the 70s in New York State. It would automatically default to February 4th, 2020 for next year's presidential election. The governor then tried to, sources tell us, convince the legislative leaders to come back into a special session this month. Albany only meets from the months of January through June. He wanted them to come back to Albany and consolidate both the congressional and the state primaries to align with that February date. Both legislative leaders said, we're not going to do that, but then the governor was still holding out hope that they could consolidate them either at a different date or even conceivably come back in January and set, say, a May date. The reason is it has to be several months in advance because candidates have to petition to get on the ballot. So you can't just simply change this at the last minute. It would have to be done within a certain time frame. And just a little while ago, we got a new statement from the governor's office saying that he would like to consolidate all three on April 28th, which would seem to contradict what he had said in an earlier radio interview that April 28th is, quote, no man's land.
Yeah, because it seems to me the deadline currently for those who aren't Democrats to register as a Democrat is October 11th. The majority of people don't even know that. And then you're kind of haphazardly wanting to move it up to February, which I would think there's registration problems if it were to move up to February, the presidential primary I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that would be, create all kinds of logistical challenges. And there are, of course, some who believe that this whole thing would be designed to suppress challenges. We do anticipate a slew of primary challenges against incumbents, particularly in the assembly. You are looking at possibly a generational change, much like you had in the state Senate in 2018. And they think that the effort to consolidate all of them particularly if it were at an earlier date, would discourage challengers from running and enable more established candidates who can more quickly get a campaign up and running. It would give them kind of a leg up.
And call me a cynical Susie here, but if you were to move the presidential primary to February, wouldn't that tend to favor more establishment candidates like Joe Biden?
You know, I've gone back and forth on this with a lot of people, and there are a lot of theories. Yes, you'd think so because Biden is Cuomo's preferred candidate. He's polling well in New York, and that might have been part of the motivation. However, then there are those who believe that because you've had so many more people on the ballot, meaning that the race will be presumably as wide open as it is right now, so many candidates, that it could splinter the vote, and it could wind up not helping the candidate that the fix was in for. Your theory is as good as mine on that. I think certainly the initial thinking was that it would help someone like Joe Biden.
Right. And as far as that deadline, New York has, I think, one of the most repressive and suppressive deadlines, 6 months before the primary to become a Democrat. The bill passed in June to change that and move it towards February. Obviously, over the summer, kind of bills just sit in no man's land as nobody's working. All right, well, it's September now. It's now, I think, 35 days till that deadline. He hasn't signed that. What is the holdup? Because my understanding was both the Assembly, the State Senate were for moving the deadline to register as a Democrat back to February 14th.
Right. In terms of the holdup, they did a slew of voting reforms, and he really hasn't signed any of them. It's not unusual for them to sit on bills. They get signed up until the last day in December. Stuff that even passed as early as February sometimes gets held for whatever reason. There were a number of people who believed that the voting reforms would get done pretty quickly and in no short order, and that hasn't been done. The reason for that, I don't know the answer. The governor's office will claim that it's a lot to go through. Their counsel is making sure they all coordinate correctly. Others would say that perhaps there's a manipulation taking place here, and that's being done purposefully to distort that deadline you're talking about.
Right, because, bottom line, the whole point of it is to, not disenfranchise people who don't pay attention 6 months before a primary. Maybe some people decide in, December or January, I want to become a Democrat to vote for, Bernie or Warren or whomever. But you would think if this already passed, in the spirit of what the bill's intended, this would be one of the first things signed because there is a deadline approaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the whole notion is voting reform, you want to get that done as quickly as possible. Look, the legislature passed most of these bills, as you probably remember, very early. It was one of their first priorities. It was something that they were able to do quickly. There wasn't a lot of opposition. There wasn't a lot of negotiating. These were common sense reforms that just were easy to do. So one would think that they could also get signed quickly, and that just hasn't been the case.
And lastly, for my viewers, because they're around the country, not just New York, Cuomo, obviously, you don't have to give your opinion, but he's pretty establishment, pretty, protecting incumbents, this kind of thing. Do you expect a pressure campaign among progressive activists if this is not moved on sooner, or does he basically have, full control?
I don't know that it's a groundswell type of issue that people are going to come out en masse for. I do know that there is a very robust, as you know, progressive movement in the city that's relatively new and engaged. I think they're very focused on recruiting candidates right now to run some of these primaries we're talking about. So I don't know that there is, if the reforms get vetoed or nothing happens by next year, you could see something around it. I don't know that the particular deadline you're talking about in terms of October, I don't know that you're going to get a lot of protest around that. But we'll see, maybe.
Thank you very much, Zachary. Hopefully we can keep in touch as the story, as these things keep changing. Thanks again.
We'd love to. Thanks so much, Jordan.
Okay. That there is, if the reforms get vetoed, That was Zachary Fink, New York One, who I really don't like that side by side because my thinning hair compared to his golden thick mane, that was something. But let me just put it simply, folks. I interviewed him because he's the reporter who broke that story last night that Governor Cuomo, who again is BFF with Joe Biden, was trying to move the New York primary up from April to February. Zachary was trying to be a little diplomatic because he's a, local neutral reporter, which that's fine, whatever. Let's just call it what it is. Governor Cuomo is bending over backwards to help Joe Biden. And as a result, screw Bernie Sanders. And the fact that when he said there's really not a groundswell of pressure to get Cuomo to sign this bill that was passed in June to move the registration deadline to register as a Democrat for people that are currently in other parties from October to February, there's no groundswell because the majority of New Yorkers don't know when the deadline is. Who pays attention? That's not diehard into politics 6 months before the presidential primary. Most people that are not currently registered Democrats might be registered Green Party, Republican, Working Families Party, whatever, they or independents. They don't know, and it's intended to be intentionally suppressive by having it super early and having no real communications that the deadline is coming. So, to me, there's only one reason that one of the top allies to Joe Biden, Governor Andrew Cuomo, has not signed the bill into law that he previously, from the people I've spoken with, he supported this bill to move this suppressive registration deadline in New York from October 11th to February 14th, which would have given people more time to register, but also February, more people are paying attention at that time. The Iowa caucus has happened already. The New Hampshire primary has happened already. That's when people in New York and other places are starting to really plug in because it's the year of the election and the primaries have already started to happen. This is rigging months before. That's why Cuomo isn't signing this bill. I spoke with someone earlier today, explained it to me, it's bureaucracy, and first the bill has to be moved to the clerk's office, and then it has to go through, 25 steps before it gets onto the governor's desk. That's fair, but listen, the bottom line, the bill is already passed. And the bill's whole point of the bill is to change the deadline, which is in 35 days from now. So you would think this bill would be top priority to get signed since there's a time crunch on it. If it's not signed, then the deadline is in October. So if you're living in New York and you register, let's say you're Green Party or Republican or Working Families Party or whatever, if you register on October 12th, you will not be eligible to vote April 28th, whether it's for Bernie, Warren, or whomever. That is called voter suppression. That is called rigging the primary. The bill is passed. Cuomo should sign the bill. This is your people elected these leaders to be in the the Assembly in New York and the Senate. Well, the Assembly and the State Senate in New York voted to make this change to move it closer to the primary where people would have the ability to register as a Democrat. And by the way, if Cuomo gets away with not signing this bill, you think other governors in other states aren't going to do the same? New York is 50 out of 50. 50th out of 50th in terms of states and how early, i.e. suppressive, their deadlines are to register as a Democrat in a closed primary. So if Cuomo doesn't sign it, even though both houses of the New York state, both the Assembly and the Senate in New York have passed the bill, if he doesn't sign it, why would others sign it? If similar legislation to move deadlines back, sign it. Thank you, Darth Corey, $42 in the super chat. Yesterday was my birthday, so here's $1 for every year I've been alive. Unbelievable that you are giving Status Quo a birthday present for you. Happy 42nd birthday, Darth Corey. Thank you for being a member of the Coup de Cavalry. Thank you for the super chat. Frankly, I'm keeping it real, folks. I always like to keep it real. I understand that you're probably donating to candidates. You're probably doing all these things. Status Quo, We could use your help. So if you're feeling super, leave it in the super chat. Also, this Sunday, we got big things coming up on Sunday. Great interviews, and we go live Sunday to raise money. So we're now at $69,069. Insert your dirty jokes now. All are welcome. $69.69. By Sunday, by the end of the live stream Sunday, we definitely want to pass 70,000 and maybe even further than that. So if you got a couple bucks, Jen will put it in the super chat, the GoFundMe link. GoFundMe takes way less than YouTube takes as far as super chat. So we appreciate super chat or GoFundMe. But if given a choice, GoFundMe is definitely ideal at the moment. So I want to point out that I will be investigating further. I'm trying to set up other interviews on this, but you don't have to live in New York for this to be a big deal. If you are a progressive and you care about Bernie Sanders having a chance, you care that we don't see the same election fraud that we saw in 2016, you care that the Democrats and the DNC don't get away and the state parties don't get away with basically rubber stamping this election for Biden, what's happening in New York matters to you. New York has the third largest pledged delegates up for grabs. California is number 1. Texas is number 2. New York is number 3. Somebody I spoke with today said New York will end up having more pledged delegates than Texas when it's all said and done. Explained it in a way that I don't understand, so I can't really explain it to you. But according to this person that's very plugged in, New York might end up having more pledged delegates than Texas. So if that's the case, if they move it up to February, which Cuomo said he wanted to do, now he's saying he doesn't want to do, who the hell knows? But more importantly, if they don't move this deadline back to give people more time to switch parties and register as a Democrat, it has a suppressive effect, and it will definitely diminish the amount of voters that will be eligible to vote for progressives like Bernie Sanders. So it does affect every single person watching. Every single person watching. Moving on, I want to give you a little plug. If you missed this, Sunday, we have a big interview. Not with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but we do have some news. We have some news regarding Debbie Wasserman Schultz. But you got to watch on Sunday, noon Eastern. Status Quo will be dropping the political bomb that I think you'll be excited about. But you got to watch Sunday. What could it be? What can it be? We'll see. Maybe if somebody leaves a really big GoFundMe, I'll tell that person. I am not beyond making special deals with my viewers. I won't make special deals with plutocrats. I won't make special deals with the banks, the fossil fuel companies, the oil executives, the pharmaceutical executives, the real estate developers, Silicon Valley, but I will make special deals with my progressive viewers. We also have an interview. Did you know that there is another Jewish socialist running for president in Jen's home state of Maryland? This man was called the Bernie Sanders of Maryland. His name's Jerome Siegel. He is from the Bread and Roses party. I interviewed him the other day. Listen, I like to keep it real. I like Jerome. Jerome was a little. You give a Jewish socialist some time to talk, he'll go on for 3 days. So Jerome was a little long in his answers. I'll keep it real. I thought it was a good interview. We're cutting it down a little bit. So, but I think it'll be entertaining. Also have an interview with Crystal Ball, who is on The Hill's YouTube channel. She's been doing great work over there, a progressive, and she's actually, surprisingly, on a corporate channel like thehill.com. They have a YouTube channel now. She's been able to cover Bernie and cover what the media is doing to him and all these things. So we have an interview with her. Have some other things other people I'm trying to interview before Sunday. So we're going to have a big Sunday show. David, is it about a 10-minute time differential, but you are on the blacklist for Google? Yes, we have been on the blacklist for Google, who owns YouTube. So, Sunday, noon Eastern, tune in and get the party started right now on the GoFundMe. We appreciate all contributions. By the way, I couldn't go anyway. Oh, and thank you. We just got a donation. John Coyne, $20. Followed by Lawrence Johnson, $10. So we are now at $69,089. Can we get another $11 to get to $69,100? I think it's possible. I couldn't go anyway because it's Mama Chariton's 60th birthday coming up, and we're going. My family is going away for a couple days. But we were denied credentials for the Houston ABC debate from ABC News. So thank you to ABC News for denying independent progressive media access to the Houston debate. I'm not crying over it. I couldn't go anyway, and frankly, I don't know if we were going to go, even if we got credentials. I think we were going to sit this one out. But it's very, very telling that one of the fastest growing progressive YouTube channels that's not buying subscribers, some are, that's growing organically. Very interesting that not enough space for that channel. That channel just happens to be covering the DNC critically, happens to be covering Joe Biden critically, happens to be covering Kamala Harris critically, Mayor Pete critically, even Elizabeth Warren. I think we're covering fairly, but we're throwing things out there that others aren't. There wasn't enough space for us. Interesting. So we got news about Debbie Wasserman Schultz on Sunday, an interview with a presidential candidate, interview with Crystal Ball, and I'm hoping we'll have some other things too that I'm working on. So, Jen said you're in the mood for a fight. That's why you want to fight with the Yang Gang. She might be right. I haven't really covered Andrew Yang that much because honestly, I don't mean to be condescending, but he just doesn't have a chance of winning. I know people said that about Trump and that. I get it. We shouldn't dismiss people that aren't known. I'm not dismissing him because he's an unknown. I've been dismissing him because I don't take his ideas seriously, because I've studied universal basic income enough to know universal basic income is a good thing. I think Yang's version is kind of a bastardization of that. But Yang's following is diehard. So, we cut a video the other day. There was a brief, I did a very brief explanation why I'm not buying what he's selling. We posted on Twitter, and Jesus, the ratio against my take was pretty thick. I mean, the Yang Gang, they defend their man. And I'm, as Bernie said, my enemy is not the coal miners. My enemy is not the oil rig workers. My enemy is climate change. My enemy is not the Yang Gang followers. Okay? We love you. We welcome you here at Status Coup. But my enemy is ideas that, frankly, don't pass the mustard, don't pass the smell test. And I think Andrew Yang, to me, is talking out of both sides of his mouth with his freedom dividend. So, first of all, I personally, my biggest issue with Andrew Yang is not UBI. My biggest issue with Andrew Yang is his mindset. And when I say that, he has a very defeatist attitude about automation. I do not think automation is inevitable. I do not think a jobless economy is inevitable. I do not think robots are definitely going to replace all of us. That attitude comes from somebody from the business community who, basically, knowing the way the United Corporations of America works, realize business could do whatever the hell they want in United Corporations of America, and that's not going to change. So his attitude as far as automation is inevitable, we're all, truck drivers are going to be out in the streets, doctors are going to be replaced by robots, everybody's going to be replaced by machines or robots, so here's $1,000. I don't believe in that fundamental attitude of defeat, here's the money. I believe in a UBI, but not under that attitude, because I think there are ways to ensure that people are not, in a widespread fashion, replaced by robots. I think in the United Corporations of America, we have fetishized business and CEOs for far too long. It wasn't always this way. I think we have allowed corporations and CEOs and executives and board of directors and all of those people being the political donors of the politicians have run roughshod over our government. So to say, well, we can't stop CEOs or companies from offshoring their jobs. Yes, you can. We can't stop CEOs from laying people off. You might not be able to force them not to, but you could certainly incentivize them or threaten them economically in a way where they wouldn't be so quick to lay off people. which I think is what Bernie Sanders is talking about. Oh, you like those subsidies you get? Well, you might not keep those subsidies if you keep laying off workers. Oh, are you enjoying this lower corporate tax rate? Because if you want to lay off all your workers and replace them with robots to gorge your profits even further, you can't deal with one yacht, you need 3, then maybe we're going to raise the corporate tax rate. And with the revenue, we'll send that off to the people. I'm just throwing out ideas here. This idea that the government and the president are just totally hopeless and helpless in the face of corporations. The corporations can do whatever the hell they want is wrong. It's a defeatist attitude, and frankly, I would this is not personal to Yang. I expect that from somebody that comes from business. That's what I expect. Secondly, so that's my first problem. My second problem was, I'm borrowing from Jimmy Dore here, was this answer on Jimmy Dore, if I could find it. For those of you who haven't seen it, here's Andrew Yang and his thoughts on the minimum wage. Hold on one second. Don't know what's going on with the desktop audio. Give me a second. Okay. Output. Internals. No. Okay. Aggregate. Oh, I think I forgot to switch something.
Or it goes much, much lower because I'm essentially giving everyone many workers who I'm concerned with are truly national in scope. And we do not have that much time. You know, it's like, so if you're going to try and in a way that perhaps, like Bernie may not, but, we're all on the same team just trying to solve these problems, in my opinion.
Are you pro-union?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, unions have been a bastion of the middle class, and without them, many workers would have much, much lower compensation and worse benefits and everything else. So I enjoy every time I hang out with the union workers in any of the states I campaign in. Yeah, and I actually, when I was in San Francisco, we had a rally of 3,000 people in industry or situation.
And for a minimum wage, what are you for, the 15 or the 20 or the 25? Are you for one of those?
Well, I'm for 100% for the spirit that no American should be working full time and not be able to pay their bills. But the reality is, if we move to a $15 minimum wage, there are many, many small businesses and industries like fast food that would probably end up getting rid of shifts in workers. Because if you have a fast food restaurant that's paying people $9.25 an hour, and then you say it's 15, then they're going to look around and be like, it's like robot burger flipper time, or it's like self-serve kiosk time, which might be okay. But I'm suggesting that if we put $1,000 a month into people's hands, then that serves as a virtual raise for every worker. It makes workers much harder to exploit. It actually rewards mothers and caregivers who right now a minimum wage would not impact. Like a freedom dividend is much, much broader and bigger, and then we can turn to a minimum wage, but the need for it goes much, much lower because I'm essentially giving everyone $1,000 a month raise, which would raise the effective minimum wage to close to $15 an hour anyway.
So, okay, well, I don't agree with that because, that idea that if we raise people's wages, they'll automate them. They will automate them if they can. They're not doing that because they're nice. right? Or because they would, if they could automate their jobs right now, they would do it right now. And that the only reason
that is generally true.
Yeah.
But
so
it is possible that if you change the economic incentives to automate something, it might become more appealing.
Right. Okay. But I like to bowl. We don't have pin setters anymore. It's not because they tried to get more money for pin setters. Okay.
It is also true too, though, Jimmy, that like if you look at like some struggling mom and pop retailer around the country, like a lot of them are paying their workers like $9-10 an hour. And then if you say, hey, it's $15, like some of them might cut back shifts or some of them might struggle. Like I've run a small private company, and a lot of these small businesses are really, really close to, like the red at any moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And something that seems like completely common sense to us, being like, hey, just pay people $15 an hour, actually would cause some of these businesses to say, you know what, I'm gonna have to cut a shift or cut a worker at the margins. So again, I just rather just give people the raise directly, and I think workers would prefer that too.
Yeah.
If we just put $1,000 a month in your hand.
So I think that, hold on, is that working now? Desktop. Yeah. I think that is a Republican, like Jimmy said, I think that's a Republican talking point. Thank you, Anthony Valenti, Seth Rich Hero. Thank you, Kip Winter, $2, Freedom Friday. Thank you. Keep it coming in the super chat. So that's a Republican talking point. Secondly, if you're saying some businesses are struggling and on the margins or whatever, and raising how much they have to pay workers, well, why are they struggling? Because there's not enough customers. So imagine if they got, as part of your UBI, $1,000 extra a month, $12,000 a year, and a raised minimum wage. The new money, the excess of more money going into the economy would be a huge, huge boon of consumer spending. Therefore, it would be helping employers, because not only do people have $12,000 extra a year, they're also making more money on their actual hourly rate. So there's more money for people to spend. That's consumer spending makes up 70% of the economy. So again, besides the fact that people need to be making, I think, way more than $15 an hour. That does not even match our inflation. But it's just a wrong-headed argument, and the data does not support what he's saying. In Seattle and other places, and new research studies have shown, not only did raising the minimum wage to $15 not negatively impact the economies there, it helped the economies there. So for somebody that's running on like economics, he should know this. So again, he's talking Republican talking points, and he says he's a libertarian, so I would expect that. So minimum wage problem, that's a non-starter for me, that he's not for raising it. Secondly, I think that what I described about this defeatist attitude, where automation is inevitable, it actually goes into why I think his UBI is wrongheaded. I'm borrowing from independent journalist Walker Bregman, who tweeted this out last night, and I'm going to expand upon it. But he tweeted out basically that how Andrew Yang is talking out of two sides of his mouth. So Andrew Yang is what he's proposing is flawed. His plan is $1,000 every month for every individual over 18. From what I could see, there's no adjustment for parents or families. Yang sells it as both supplemental income and replacement for lost jobs, but $1,000 isn't both. So right here he says 1 out of 3 American workers are at risk of losing their jobs to new technologies. So if you do the math, that's 110 million people are at risk of losing their jobs to new technologies. And this time, the time needed for new jobs to come isn't going to come soon enough. Okay, so if under that premise right here, what would you do with $1,000 a month on top of whatever you make right now? Well, which one is it? If 110 million people are potentially going to lose their jobs over the next couple years, how is the $12,000 you're giving them per year going to be on top of what they're making at their job? In your vision or your defeatist vision of what America's going to be when the robots, replace your spouse and all forms of capital and supply, how is the $1,000 going to be on top of what they're already making? You're either talking about a jobless economy where there's going to be no jobs, or you're not. And if there's going to be a jobless economy, which on your website it says 110 million out of 329 million Americans are at risk of losing their jobs. I think it's a lot more than that, by the way. Then really what they're left of is not income on top of what they make in their jobs. They're left with $12,000 a month, which is starvation. That's a starvation amount to provide people. I would be all for it if it was actually on top of people in their day-to-day jobs. But from everything Andrew Yang has said, his whole operating vision is everyone's going to lose their job. Automation is inevitable. And he also talks on his website about an extra $1,000 a month allows you to be entrepreneurial. It allows you to actually go look for jobs you actually want but might not have the experience in. All this. Well, how are you going to do that if robots are replacing all the jobs? I mean, there's a basic contradiction in what he's saying. To me, it's a federal jobs guarantee would be the right way of going about it. I believe in universal basic income, but I don't believe in UBI in terms of, well, because we gotta just, we're defeated, and you're probably gonna have you're gonna get fired, and you're gonna be replaced. So here's $12,000. That's a whole nother can of worms. That then it's an economic Hunger Games, and here's $12,000. What are people gonna do? Just replace food and drink their urine? YouTube will probably demonetize me for saying that. If the Yang Gang can explain it to me, how two things could be true. We're all going to lose our jobs. Robots are replacing everybody. There's nothing you could do. Corporations could do whatever they want. They could lay off however many people they want. There's no regulations on corporation. There's no actual economic threat made to corporations that if you do lay off all these jobs, if you do replace humans with robots, here's what's going to happen with you. I don't hear that from Andrew Yang. I do hear that from Bernie Sanders. So, in theory, yes, I would be totally for people getting $12,000 a year extra on top of what they already make. But in Andrew Yang's own vision and own foreshadowing of what's going to happen, it's not going to be on top of their salary from work or their hourly rate. It's going to be instead of it, because there's not going to be any jobs. And for those of you saying, why don't you have them on? I've emailed twice. In fairness, I haven't recently, but I think like 2 months ago, I reached out to his campaign's media email. They didn't get back to me. I don't take it personally. Maybe they just didn't see it. Maybe they had other offers that were better. I'd love to have Andrew Yang on. I'd be fair. But this doesn't make any sense to me how, in one breath, doom, we're going to have an episode of the economic Walking Dead. We're not going to have jobs. And by the way, it's already happening. He's right. Automation is already happening. But you don't have to just throw the white, what is it? Throw in the white flag? What do they throw in? Throw the towel and say, oh, there's nothing we could do. Let the corporations replace mom with a robot, whatever. And here's $12,000. That isn't a sane version of universal basic income, which, by the way, the idea of universal basic income has been around for a long time. I know 2 documentary filmmakers who are working on, maybe it's already done, a great documentary because they got funding to give people around the country. I think they gave $1,000 to $1,300 a month to see how they would do it. I think it's a great idea, but I don't think it's a great idea if basically from what you are foreshadowing, there's not going to be any jobs left and people are going to only have to live off $12,000. I also don't like it because for the most vulnerable in society, for me, for example, I might not be the best example because I'm not making a stable amount every month. I basically take whatever I can from status quo, usually less than anyone else because, we're not making enough for me to take so much. But for me, an extra $1,000 a month plus would be a big help to me. But I have my own business. I'm not working for anyone else. So, I guess I could fire myself, but I'm not at risk at losing my job right now. But thanks to you guys. Thank you for, become a Status Quo member. That's a good segue. We are now at 702 Status Quo members. Sign up, statusquo.com/join. We are going to have a members call this month. Maybe we'll have 2 just to incentivize more people. We got some great interviews and we got some great ideas for in the field coverage. We want to get back out in the field as soon as possible. Statusquo.com/join. However, the point is, I don't, for me, it would be helpful. But what about the person that is at the lowest totem pole of the economic ladder? Well, under Andrew Yang, you have to choose one or the other. The money you're getting from food stamps, you might be getting SSI, food stamps, possibly some Medicaid, whatever. And you could we don't have to have a debate right now about social welfare programs and whether people are moochers and this and that. That's a whole nother discussion. Of course, there's some of that, but I think corporate welfare far laps, abuse as compared to social welfare programs. But if Andrew Yang's program was universal basic income on top of, if people need food stamps or whatever, maybe if you didn't make them choose, because his program actually fire yourself, Jordan, then interview yourself and get rehired. That would be awesome. That might go viral. Maybe if he would not make people choose, but give people an extra $1,000 a month, plus the food stamps or plus the SSI, this and that, then some of those lowest in society would have the economic relief to then get back on their feet and get paid employment and get whatever the problem is, whether they're unhealth, whether they're in poor health, whether they're a single parent, whatever it is, that $1,000 a month plus the food stamps or SSI or whatever it is could, or single parents, whatever it is, might help them find employment or things like that. But making the poorest choose between their social welfare and UBI, he's trying to make it seem like, well, they'd end up with, he uses examples where the social welfare people are only making like 500 something bucks a month, and this would give them 1,000. I mean, if I went around New York City right now, I could find people that, in terms of their social welfare programs, get more than $1,000 a month. So not every single person getting food stamps or SSI or Medicaid or child nutrition programs or whatever it is are making less than $1,000 a month. So it's a red herring when he says, basically speaking, in totality, they'll get more. That's not true. Thank you, Artificial Morphicin, $5 in the super chat. Jordan, you're right. Yang is for runaway capitalism. He's an elite corporate bubble, and his UBI is his crumbs for the workers. Artificial Morphicin, you said it. I did not. And by the way, I don't know Andrew Yang. He seems like a nice guy. To tell you the truth, I don't want to lie to you. I haven't researched him enough to know his background. I know he's a tech guy who made a lot of money. There's no reason that I know of to impugn his motives. Maybe he really thinks this is the best thing to do. Maybe he really, in a misguided way, thinks this is the best way to help. So I'm not calling him like an evil capitalist. He's not. I don't think he's as bad as like Joe Biden or Mitt Romney or these people. But I mean, basic common sense. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. Are we going to have a economic Hunger Games with no jobs and robots basically replace us and everything and every job? If that's the case, you're going to have to increase the pie a little bit. $1,000 a month won't be enough. If robots are all going to replace us and there's not really going to be a vibrant job market, most people need, like, especially children. Because, by the way, are college costs going to go down even when the jobs are replaced? I don't think so. College costs might go up in that case. Is housing going to go down under the Yang administration? Is a gallon of milk going to get cheaper? Or, are all these things going to get cheaper to the point where you could live off $12,000? I don't think so. I really don't. Notary S, $20 for the super chat. Tulsi came out in favor of UBI. Yang is in trouble because she supports all other progressive policies, as well as Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, etc. I'll have to look into that. I'm assuming she didn't come out in favor of his version of UBI. And by the way, he calls it the freedom dividend. Again, like Bernie says, how free are you if you're living off $12,000 a year? Because if Andrew Yang's plan, by the way, was to fight automation a way to fight automation and didn't have this defeatist attitude about automation, if he had concrete steps to fight automation, to prevent corporate, greedy, soulless CEOs from laying off their workforce and replacing them with robot Betty, and at the same time wanted to give $12,000 a year, other than Bernie, I'd be part of the Yang Gang. I'd get a tattoo, even though my mother wouldn't like it, because I couldn't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. But that's not his plan. All I hear from him is the battle's lost before we fought it, succumb, throw in the towel, automation will defeat us, here's money. That's not a UBI I would support. And also, again, Republican talking points about the minimum wage. Brian, Yang hasn't been rich enough, long enough to become a sociopath yet. And by the way, I'm all for, hey, if you're part of the Yang Gang, spread the word. I'd love to have him on. I did. I could show you the receipts. I did send an email, I think 2 months ago, to get him on. He didn't respond, and I moved on to other things. Would love to have him on. I think it's terrible that the media I do think there's a Yang blackout. I think there's a political jihad going on against Bernie Sanders. Let's face it. What Yang has experienced is nothing compared to what Bernie Sanders is experiencing. However, you have outlets putting up polls where they show Beto O'Rourke at 1% and show whomever was at 5% and totally just didn't include Andrew Yang in the poll, even though the Real Clear Politics average, I think he's tied or slightly ahead of Beto. So you have establishment network like CNN or MSNBC just erasing Andrew Yang from their graphics and just jumping from 5%, whoever was at 5%, to Beto at 1%, and not putting Andrew Yang in, who was at 3%. That is propaganda. It's not a mistake. It's intentional, and he deserves coverage. And he deserves, even though I don't agree with his version of UBI, it does deserve its day in court, so to speak. But to me, I'm for jobs guarantee. I'm for Bernie's idea. We could create 20 million jobs just through wind, solar, renewable, retrofitting, and a Green New Deal. And by the way, in fairness, that's not original to Bernie. Jill Stein, the Green Party, has also come out with plans. And by the way, for those of you who call Jill Stein a Russian puppet, I know it's not mostly my audience, the Green Party invented the Green New Deal. They deserve credit for that. But we could invent 20 million jobs tomorrow if we 100% went the way of a Green New Deal. Labor unions can become vibrant again under a president that is serious about increasing collective bargaining, doubling union membership, and all those things. The talking point has been we've had crumbling infrastructure for 30 years, 40 years in America. A lot of jobs to be made. And, frankly, we need a little change of attitude in America where the greed is good era, the door shuts on that, and let's make sure our workers can eat era comes back a little bit. Because in the 1950s and 60s, I might have not been alive, but I do remember, I don't remember, I was not alive. I have been told stories where, CEOs cared if their workers could breathe. Would have a problem if their workers were sleeping in their car. So I'm sorry. I don't buy what Mr. Yang is selling. I'd love to interview him, though. Would love to interview him. But you know what I do buy? Status Quo GoFundMe. We are now at $69,089. This coming Sunday, we got a big show. Remember, folks, Status Quo. If you believe in something, God rested on the 7th day. We're just getting started on day 7. So we're live every Sunday, noon Eastern. I'm going live for a couple hours. We got great interviews. I have a surprise when it comes to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, which you will learn exclusively here on Status Quo. That's worth the price of admission, folks. Have some other great interviews. We have an interview with a presidential candidate you've never heard of, which is interesting. We have an interview with Crystal Ball of The Hill. I'm trying to schedule Ben Norton, but he's somewhere around the world, and it's been a little difficult to make the time. So hopefully I get Ben Norton, because he's got great reporting on Venezuela, Colombia, and is got to give you a little reality check here on China. Trump is certainly full of crap on China, but so are a lot of Democrats. And Ben Norton, who's done great reporting on Venezuela, also has a lot to enlighten us on Venezuela, on China. And by the way, what I want to talk to Ben Norton about most Have you heard that the U.S. military is now creating an algorithm to monitor or tackle fake news? Yeah, because that's who I want determining what is news and what is fake news. If you think the YouTube algorithm is bad, raise your hand. If you think the military should be in the business of deciding what is and what is not fake news, raise your hand. That is a train wreck and probably would put companies like Status Quo out of business. But I got news for you. If I could do the math, if the 342 people watching right now could donate $5 each, we would raise $1,710. $1,710 we would raise right there in the GoFundMe. You could ask Jen if you need confirmation. An average in the field reporting trip takes conservatively $2,000. So if everybody right now gave $5 to the GoFundMe, we'd have enough to hit the road again. And just to remind you, it says $69,000 in there. We have spent some of the GoFundMe money on reporting in the field. So I don't want you to look at it and be like, why do you keep asking us for money? You got $69,000. Because we've been showing you what we're going to do with the money in real time. We've been all over the place. For you members of the Coup de Cavalry, you know we've been all over the place the last few months. So keep it coming in the GoFundMe if you can. We know that some of you don't even have $5. That's fine. We don't want to make your situation worse. For those of you that do, we thank you. And by the way, we're not so far off from our ultimate goal. Our goal is $85,000. We are now less than $16,000 away from $85,000, which is amazing for a small startup with very few resources. Speaking of resources, let me tell you, another headache this week. It's a good headache. We started interviewing to hire a new cameraman or woman, and we're starting to do interviews for that, trying to get somebody to replace Ty. So that's also, we're interviewing for that. So we need to hire somebody before we can get back in the field, but I think we'll be able to hire someone relatively soon. So that's all what's all going on. After I go live here, I'm going to do a members video and upload it immediately to Patreon and statusquo.com just for our members and patrons. We have news on the documentary Flushing Flint. So if you have not signed up as a member yet, listen, if you ask me, if you can't do both and you could only do one, GoFundMe or membership, become a member, because that's recurring monthly support. That's what we need. That is our business model. You can become a Status Quo member for as cheap as a cup of coffee a month. Statusquo.com/join. Support real independent media, because according to the Pentagon and the military, they're going to create an algorithm to knock us out. We got another super chat. Artificial Morphicin. If Gabbard and Warren endorse Bernie and he announces they will be in his cabinet, he would win the primary easily. That's real unity. Progressives unite to overcome the DNC of the establishment. I agree, but Warren ain't endorsing Bernie until... if she's alive, I don't think she's endorsing Bernie until she's mathematically eliminated. I think Tulsi will. I think Tulsi will at some point. And listen, I like Tulsi. I think the media screwed her. But I support her staying in the race. I don't think like her current base is like pulling away from Bernie, because I think she's eventually going to drop out. I mean, the reality is you eventually run out of money. But I support her staying in the race because she's got an important message to give. And here. Thank you, Jim Garrison. $10. Here you go. Thank you, Jim Garrison. Really appreciate it. We do appreciate if you can leave it in the GoFundMe, because YouTube takes a lot of dough from us. 30% of the super chats YouTube takes, but I'll take it wherever I get it. But if you don't mind taking the extra step, Jen will put the GoFundMe link in. I will end the week with a little Q&A. Again, I'm going to do a members video right after this. So if you're not a member and you want the news, we do have news on Flushing Flint, our documentary. For those of you OG Status Quoers, you know, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this. We're trying to get this documentary picked up by a larger outlet. Well, we have some news, so stay tuned. Before I go, any comments, thoughts, questions? Noon Eastern on Sunday. Status Quo, noon Eastern Sunday. We will have something to tell you regarding Debbie Wasserman Schultz and other great interviews. So, before I go, let me read some comments, questions, concerns. Warren wouldn't endorse Bernie if she were selected to be VP for fear of offending an elitist. Bernie Nina 2020 or Bernie Tulsi 2020? I prefer Bernie Nina. No offense to Tulsi, but I think Nina Turner is just a different kind of cat. I think she could inspire. Honestly, I think Nina Turner and the inspiration that she presents and her way of talking and her story could bring over a lot of independents and possibly even some Republicans, frankly. I know she's a black woman, but frankly, not every Republican is racist, and I think Nina Turner has crossover appeal, and honestly, Nina Turner would also bring out a lot more African Americans than Hillary Clinton did. That's just my personal opinion, and frankly, putting aside all the politics, I think she would make one hell of a vice president, and frankly, I think one day she'd make an amazing, amazing president. That's just my opinion. Baltazar 228. $4.99. YouTube doesn't take money from streamers. It supercharges an additional 30% to the purchaser. Incorrect. They do take 30% from the actual channels. I've looked into it. So has Jen. If you have information I don't, let me know. But I've read the bottom line. They take 30% from the super chats. If you don't want to super chat, if you don't want to GoFundMe, Jen just left the link for PayPal too. The way Yang wants to pay for UBI is illegal. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that. Joe, is it going to be a really big show? Well, Joe, I don't want to feed you a bill of goods and tell you it's going to be epic and then you're disappointed. I think Sunday is going to be a big show. I do. We have news that no one else has regarding Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I'll give you a hint. Her possibly no longer being in Congress. Does that excite you? Tulsi needs to put a shiv into Warren's campaign. Let's not, endorse assassinations here. Curious one. Appreciate you, Status Quo, and we'll be tuning in Sunday. Just started a new job, and when my pay gets regular, we will rejoin at the highest level. Looking forward to that. Curious one. Congrats on the new job. I hope you enjoy it, and we look forward to having you back as a member. How do I cure the Warren rash? I haven't found a cure for that. I haven't found a cure. Totally agree. I love Nina. Yes, Bernie Nina. Nina Turner is amazing. I tried Vaseline with Hildemort. It didn't help, but thanks. Status Quo. Bernie needs to take off the gloves with Warren behind closed doors to show her the light on how to beat Trump, for fuck's sake. Oh, you just got me demonetized. I couldn't help myself. Why'd you have to curse? Demonetized. I don't think Bernie needs to take off the gloves right now, to tell you the truth. I think Bernie, honestly, has a better chance of pulling away voters from Biden than Warren. I think Warren's voters are very much Hillary Clinton's voters, wealthier, urban, make a lot of money, college educated. Biden, because people don't know what's good for them and people are voting against their own interests and the media doesn't inform people, Biden has a lot of working class voters who make under $50,000 because they just don't know the truth about the demolition Biden has helped take to the unions. They don't know that Biden is basically bent over for every special interest known to man. They don't know that Joe Biden is taking money from companies that are union busting. They don't know that Joe Biden, he's not going to renegotiate the TPP. He's going to ram it through. And they will know, I think Bernie needs to go more aggressively against Biden in the next debate. And frankly, I think Biden is having cognitive issues. So if Bernie comes after him with legitimate policy critiques, I don't know if Biden's going to, not only do I think Biden can't respond because he doesn't have the facts on his side and he has been a sellout to big corporations and he has been part of the total demolition of the labor movement, the total demolition of the working class. I don't think he's cognitively all there right now to credibly and effectively defend himself. I don't. $10. Carne Verde. Thank you, Status Quo. I meant to hit the $10 contribution. Thank you. We got the $10. Really appreciate it. Swear jar. Okay. Focus on knocking out Biden. Okay. Thanks, Jen. They are dumb. You're right, Jordan. Hell no. Punished for speaking language of the proletariat. Mike Sarvis. Let me tell you something, Mark. This might get me in trouble, but I'm going to keep it real here. There's some channels, progressive channels, that are passing us as far as subscribers. I don't have any information. But based on my knowledge of YouTube, I think they're passing us for reasons that are, shall I say, not on the level. In some cases, I think certain channels are buying subscribers, which is a thing. Don't get Jen started on this. And in other cases, I think other channels are passing us because they're frankly making sweet love to the establishment, and YouTube embraces those channels and pushes them into people's feeds more. But I'm not going to stop cursing. I try because it demonetizes us, but we can't self-censor. We can't succumb to YouTube. If I stop, I don't try to curse to be like tough. I just tend to curse sometimes. That's just who I am. And if I stop doing it, then I'm self-censoring, and then status quo is what it is. So that's why membership is so important. I hate to beat a dead horse, but we're not asking you to become members so Jen and I and the eventual people we could hire have more money or have nicer lifestyles. Trust me, that's not going to happen. We're asking you to become members because the way for a true independent outlet to not only survive but to thrive is to not be reliant on platforms like YouTube. YouTube needs to be kind of supplemental income for us, but not what we depend on. There are other outlets that depend on YouTube because they never had another business model, and those outlets are in trouble. Not naming any names, but those outlets are in trouble. We are building through membership. Statusquo.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. I know most of you, I don't want to put you on the spot, I think most of you have $5 or $10 a month. And we differentiate ourselves by going out into the trenches. I have not been out into the field, both because we don't have a cameraman, but also because I've been trying to give my back more time. The problem is, I had surgery in May. I tend, when my back starts feeling better, to immediately jump back out onto the road and re-aggravated it. So the PT person told me just because your back's feeling better doesn't mean it is fully healed. So I've been trying to take more time to heal my back because we have a campaign coming up, we have important stories, and I can't keep re-injuring it because then, as Jen says, for the long term, I would be compromised. I'm in this for the long term, so I need to make sure my back and my health is good. So that's part of why we haven't been back in the field, but also, frankly, we got to make more money. We have to grow our pie so that we can hire other reporters, so we have a travel budget. We don't have any special funders right now. We don't have a bigwig investor. We're not taking money from banks. We're not taking money from big oil. We're not taking money from big pharma. We're not taking money from big real estate. We're not taking money from Silicon Valley. We're not taking money from the corrupt members of the United Corporations of America. And as such, we are growing organically, grassroots. So I hope, thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the GoFundMe. Keep it coming if you can. And by the way, I believe that actual in the trenches independent media can make a difference in this election, can make a difference in this country. I really do. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing this. I think we could break stories. But you know what? In my experience, the more you are in the field, the more stories you break. The less you are in the field, the less stories and the less truth you break, because you got to have your ears to the ground and you got to be out meeting new people. And when you meet new people, when you meet when you go to new communities, when you meet activists, oh my God, you learn all sorts of stuff. You learn all sorts of shit out in the field. So, thank you for watching. I will see you on Sunday, noon Eastern time. We have some really great interviews. Spread the word. Again, tell your friends, tell your mother, tell the mailman. We have some news on Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We'll have an interview with the Hills Crystal Ball. We'll have an interview with socialist Jewish candidate from the Bread and Roses Party, Jerome Siegel. And hopefully we'll have some other interviews if the people I'm trying to line up come through. Remember, most people are not lacking compassion. Most people have no earthly idea what is happening in this corrupt United Corporations of America. I will see you on Sunday.